me change my page. Then I heard him call out in a loud voice, "Bring the guards of the city here, each with a weapon in his hand." And I saw 6 men coming from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with a deadly weapon in his hand. With them was a man clothed in linen, who had a riding kit at his side. Then they came and stood beside the bronze altar. Now the glory of the God of Israel went up from above the cherubim where it had been, and moved to the threshold of the temple. Then the Lord called to the man clothed in linen, who had the riding kit at his side, and said to him, "Go throughout the city of Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of those who grieve and lament over all the detestable things that are done in it." As I listened, he said to the others, "Follow him throughout the city and kill, without showing pity or compassion. Slaughter old men, young men and maidens, women and children, but do not touch anyone who has the mark. Begin at my sanctuary." So they began with the elders who were in front of the temple. Then he said to them, "Defile the temple and fill the courts with the slain. Go!" So they went out and began killing throughout the city. While they were killing, and I was left alone, I fell face down, crying out, "O sovereign Lord, are you going to destroy the entire remnant of Israel in this outpouring of your wrath on Jerusalem?" He answered me, "The sin of the house of Israel and Judah is exceedingly great. The land is full of bloodshed, and the city is full of injustice. They say, 'The Lord has forsaken the land, the Lord does not see.' So I will not look on them with pity, or spare them, but will bring down on their own heads what they have done." Then the man in linen with the writing kit at his side brought back word, saying, "I have done as you commanded." What occurs here is still a vision. God does not literally let loose the ninjas on the people. Okay? What he is doing is letting Ezekiel know that he is bringing judgment on the people. He is going to judge everyone. Old men, little girls, strong men, weak men, little boys, mums and dads, everyone. The only ones who will escape judgment are those who grieve over the idolatry and wickedness of the people. God is going to judge the people of God for failing to treat him as God. The judgment here is depicted as the angels of the Lord going throughout the city of Jerusalem, killing people who are not marked with the seal. But we know that the actual judgment comes in the siege of Jerusalem and the scattering of the people of God. Notice the remnant language there as well. The final judgment comes in chapter 10, but it's hinted at in chapter 8. So come back with me to 8 verse 6. "Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The utterly detestable things the house of Israel is doing here? Things that will drive me far away from my sanctuary." Did you catch that? The behaviour of the people drives God away. Come to chapter 10. Just wanted to double check something. I'll manage that. Chapter 10. "I looked, and I saw the likeness of a throne of sapphire above the expanse that was over the heads of the cherubim. The Lord said to the man clothed in linen, 'Go in among the wheels beneath the cherubim, fill your hands with burning coals from among the cherubim, and scatter them over the city.' And as I watched, he went in. Now the cherubim were standing in the south side of the temple when the man went in, and a cloud filled the inner court. Then the glory of the Lord rose from above the cherubim and moved to the threshold of the temple. The cloud filled the temple, and the court was full of the radiance of the glory of the Lord. The sound of the wings of the cherubim could be heard as far away as the outer court, like the voice of God Almighty when he speaks. When the Lord commanded the man in linen, 'Take fire from among the wheels, from among the cherubim,' the man went in and stood beside a wheel. Then one of the cherubim reached out his hand to the fire that was among them. He took up some of it and put it into the hands of the man in linen, who took it and went out. Under the wings of the cherubim could be seen what looked like the hands of a man. I looked, and I saw beside the cherubim 4 wheels, one beside each of the cherubim. The wheels sparkled like chrysolite. As for their appearance, the 4 of them looked alike. Each was like a wheel intersecting a wheel. As they moved, Sorry, I lost my place. As they moved, they would go in any one of the 4 directions the cherubim faced. The wheels did not turn about as the cherubim went. And cherubim went in whatever direction the head faced without turning as they went. Their entire bodies, including their backs, their hands and their wings, were completely full of eyes, as were the 4 wheels. I heard the wheels being called the whirling wheels. Each of the cherubim had 4 faces. One was that of a cherub, the second the face of a man, the third the face of a lion, and the fourth the face of an eagle. Then the cherubim rose upward. They were the living creatures I had seen by the Kibar River. When the cherubim moved, the wheels beside them moved, and when the cherubim spread their wings to rise from the ground, the wheels did not leave their side. When the cherubim stood still, they also stood still, and when the cherubim rose, they rose with them, because the spirit of the living creatures was in them. Then the glory of the Lord departed from over the threshold of the temple, and stopped with the cherubim, above the cherubim. While I watched, the cherubim spread their wings and rose from the ground, and as they went, the wheels went with them. They stopped at the entrance to the east gate of the Lord's house, and the glory of the God of Israel was above them. These were the living creatures I had seen beneath the God of Israel by Kibar River, and I realised that they were cherubim. Each had 4 faces and 4 wings, and under their wings looked like the hands of a man. Their faces had the same appearance as those I had seen by the Kibar River. Each one went straight ahead. Verse 18 is the key. The glory of the Lord departs the temple. God abandons his people. God leaves. He will not abide with the sin of his people. To make the matter secure, chapter 9, he says, defile the temple with the slain. Dead people are unclean, and people who have been murdered are even more unclean. And God says, just strew them through the temple. God leaves his people. They had plainly asked him to leave, and so he does. That's why we read Romans 1. Romans 1:24 says, therefore God gave them over to the sinful desires of their hearts. That is, God allowed them to have what they wanted. God allowed them to worship the created things and indulge in their pleasures which were sinful. And in the same way that God left his people so that they could worship other gods, God allowed all people to go their own way as a judgment on them. God in judgment leaves us to our own devices. It's like the fool. The fool thinks he's playing a board game like my kids. They think that it'll be fine if we have our own rules and we change the way things work. It'll be fine, life will be great. But they're missing out on the bigger picture. It doesn't work fine. It doesn't work well. It is not okay. The fact is that we are made for worship. If we do not worship the living God, we will worship what he has made. End of story. That is what we do. And if you don't believe me, go to a footy game. If you don't believe me, go to the casino. There you see people worshipping money in all of its glory. If you go to the footy game, you see people worshipping their idols. We have a TV show called Australian Idol. Why do you think that is? We are made to worship. And sometimes in our sin, we think that we've gotten off. That we can worship the created things and it's okay, but it's not. We think that we're better off with what we've got, but we're not. God's response to our sin is to leave. Now for Christians, he's not going to leave us. But we're surprised by our society and the godlessness of our society and the way that it seems to become ever increasingly more ungodly. We today have the promise that God will not leave us, but our society has no such promise. Yesterday, on the way home, I saw a sign that said, it was a big, one of the billboards. That sign said, if you don't have a faith, or if you used to have a faith but don't anymore, keep religion out of politics. There are campaigns seeking to silence the voice of Christians in our governments. Our society says to God, go away.